afternoon, everyone. We appreciate having the opportunity to practice together this Rohatsu week. We can't do this practice, or I certainly can't do this practice alone. And I was looking over the room and noticing when I first got here that I've had the opportunity to sit with every one of you before in a retreat. It's wonderful when there are newcomers, but it's also wonderful to be with all of you that we sat together and supported each other in practice before. In these first few days, I've taken the opportunity before our first period of sitting to go outside and just take a little stroll around. And with the lack of light pollution in this area, and also the open spaciousness of it, but then butting up against the mountains as well, really spectacular. The stars shining so brightly, twinkling, and just a little bit of breeze against my face. And then I walked up this to the right when you get on the county line road here, and I walked up that road a little bit, and I turned around and was sort of surveying the landscape. And I looked back and I could just see this faint orangish red light here at the Abbey. And I guess that's emanating from a chicken coop. And I was struck by that from several standpoints, but here I was in this boundless aspect, this boundless area, in this beautiful surroundings of the Abbey. And yet, of the Abbey, all I could really see was that orange or orangish red light. That was it. And I thought, think of the size of the universe, the totality of the universe. And here we are, 24 of us, about 23, 4. And somehow we all found our place to come here at this point in time. I just really could not wrap my head around that. But we did. And the driving people behind that are two Roshis, of course. Without them, that would never have happened. And Bernie Glassman had this teaching about taking all the ingredients of our life, making the best meal possible, and then just giving it away. Just giving it away. It takes a special person to do that. And I think what an example of that. There are two Roshis model in taking wisdom, compassion, love, deep, deep practice, consistency, and the teachings, the Dharma, and offering that up to all of us. Just giving that away daily, moment by moment, giving that to us. It's almost like as a little kid, I didn't know what my parents did. I took it for granted. They did all kinds of things for my brother and me. They were human, they had their challenges and flaws like we all do. But they offered up a lot, and it was many, many years later before I began to appreciate that and really realize everything they'd done. Well, I remember Sensei saying one time that your relationship with his Zen teacher is actually closer than a parent. Yeah. So I'll just leave that for each of you to explore, but I've certainly experienced that. And one of the other things about this meal they've created is it's co-created. It's Shishin Roshi and Roshi Shinko, two different individuals, and yet one individual. And they've created this meal for us to enjoy, and neither one could have done it by themselves. Together, they get this amazing treat for all of us to enjoy. And they do so selflessly. A couple of weeks ago at Soten's memorial service, Roshi shared with the audience that Soten was not a big fan of Dharma Talks. He loved to sit, he loved the Sangha, he loved his teachers, but he was not a big fan of Dharma Talks. But as he got sick, he did say that he wanted to do a Dharma Talk. He wanted to write a Dharma Talk. And so as he got weaker and weaker, Roshi saw him very near the end of his life. And he asked him, hey, so how's that Dharma Talk coming along? Oh, this is what I understand. I wasn't there, but I believe this is what happened. And so paused for a moment, looked at Roshi and just said, look death directly in the eye. That was his talk. Made Abraham Lincoln look verbose. And from what I know, Soten courageously and generously embodied his own teaching. But today, I want to talk about living. And I want to talk about looking life right in the eye. And that's not so easy. Life can be very challenging for all of us. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of suffering. Certainly the Buddha taught life is suffering. Of course, he also taught there's a way out of the suffering. But all of us have experienced, times of a lot of pain. Some of us may be experiencing some of that right now, this week. Most of us are. I know I am, at times. And it seems often like the harder we try to avoid pain in our life, the more we can bring it upon us. And so it's so easy to try to escape in subtle ways or more overt ways. Maybe a subtle way like, hey, I think I'll just go out and go for a little run or a little walk, whatever it is. Just something to change the setting. Or maybe a little bit more aggressive way. I think I'll have something to drink, or I'll do some drugs, or I'll indulge in food or sex, or whatever works for me as a craving, whatever I've been conditioned to or acclimated to. Most of us have done some or all of those things. But as we do that, I found, in my life anyway, that all I get is some transient relief. And oftentimes, depending upon some of those things, I actually increase my suffering. So that's certainly one difficulty in looking life directly in the eye. Easy to want to look elsewhere and escape. Another challenge is around our conditioning. None of us can escape the socialization process that we went through as from babies on to this point in our life. And it's necessary to be part of the human equation. But it also can put us on autopilot in a lot of different situations, just kind of going through the motions. I know, for example, at work, when I come back from vacation or after there's been a holiday or something, hey, how was your Thanksgiving? Great, it's really good. How about yours? Good, oh yeah, fantastic. How's your wife doing? Oh man, can't live without her, boy. I don't know how she puts up with me. Yeah, ain't that the truth, And just having these kind of, there's nothing wrong with them, but they don't convey much information. And they certainly don't come close to piercing the heart of what's really going on with people, myself included, when I participate in that, and I do from time to time, for sure. And when we do that, it's easy to miss out on really connecting with folks, really connecting with our friends and family, loved ones. And over time we can layer on, we kind of buy into those stories, or I buy into the story to a certain extent. And I've shared with you before, that I'm an introvert. Well, what does that even mean? Okay, took a test sometime, rated out as a super introvert, but the point is, we're giving a talk in front of all of you. I'm not hiding in the dorm room right now. And although it might be a nice place to be, we'll find out. But some of the other things besides that, might think like, I'm a type A person. In business, that's a big deal. That's like a badge of honor. I'm a type A person. I'm real high strung. I'm real hyper. I can get the job done. And I remember one time being in a discussion, hiring this person. They said, well, I love this person. And they said, well, there's one problem with her. I go, what's that? She's type B. Pretty relaxed. Okay, what can you say at some point? Anyway, of course, another classic one is, and you hear this in job interviews all the time, is, well, what's an area you really would like to work on, or an area that's an issue for you? Oh, I'm a perfectionist. I just do things too thoroughly. It's just all these kind of games we play, that kind of stuff. But anyway, but I want to share an example with you of conditioning in my life. And it's not meant to be a woe is me thing. It's meant to be that we all have, I'm sure, many, many examples like this. But it's just something that I experienced, and it sort of experienced me, if you will. And I wasn't aware of the impact of that until I came to practice. Really for about 40 years with what I'm going to tell you about, before I really understood that it had affected me. And yet, when I came here and began to understand it a little bit, still deal with some of these things from it, absolutely. But it's something at least I'm aware of now. And it started when I was 5 years old. My brother was in fourth grade, so he was 5 years old. Of course, I looked up to him. I loved him. My big brother. He was really, as big brothers go. He was very kind to me. And in fourth grade, he brought home his report card, and his marks were not where my mom thought they should be. I have no idea what the marks even were in fourth grade, quite frankly. But anyway, they weren't up to what she expected. So she started yelling at him about how bad his grades were and how he, never going to amount to anything. How's he going to go to college? I went from fourth grade and just, from 0 to 60 as far as escalating this, just like in the blink of an eye, right? So what did I do? I sat in my room, I closed the door, and then I went into my closet as the yelling went on and on. So this was repeated, 4 times a year. I think there were 3 or 4 times that we got report cards in grade school. And each time it was repeated, and each time I hid in the closet, and more honestly, I kind of, cowered in the closet while my brother, whom I loved, was getting yelled at. And my mom was doing this, and I loved my mom. I loved her too. I just didn't understand what was going on. But there was a part of it that I did get to understand, a superficial part. And that was, I was told that my brother had done well in school until he got to 4th grade. He'd been this exemplary student until 4th grade. And as a 5-year-old, I was very confused by that. But the one thing, well, maybe not so confused, I figured, okay, I'm doing okay in kindergarten. I'm going to definitely keep that up in 1st, 2nd grade. But dang it, when I hit 4th grade, that's where the rubber meets the road. Because I think my brother's a pretty smart guy, and he's struggling there. So anyway, so what's the point of all this? This story. Well, first of all, the real point, as it relates to my practice, is that I didn't know what the heck was going on. I didn't realize how it affected me as I got older. And one of the ways it affected me was I developed a very, in that situation, helpful approach for avoiding pain. And that was to just create distance, to distance myself from it, to not feel it at all. And interestingly to me, many years later, I began to realize, and this is after I came, it was about 40 years later or so, and I came to the Great Mountain Zen Center and started practicing. I didn't share this story with the Roshis at that time, but it was affecting me by just their teachings and by Dokusan and things. I was learning a lot more, about myself. But I realized, one of the things when I was attracted to Zen was to be like Spock on Star Trek. And I didn't even watch Star Trek very much at all. Didn't really like it that much, but I loved Spock. And I loved Spock still when I was like 40. And I thought, I'd be disingenuous if I didn't say part of the reason I got into Zen was kind of thinking like, that's for me. Save the ears, but the rest of that, I'm all in, right? And so, then later in my practice and with Great Heart Way, and realizing, and it's awesome too, I said that two people, it takes two to create this, that some of the feminine energy too, not that men can't have a lot of sensitivity, but some of the feminine energy too about having feelings. I know so much with Roshi Shinko when I was in Dokusan with her through the years, and she'd be talking about feelings and really just experiencing these feelings. And I was like, well, I think I feel a lot. And I remember somebody even telling me, what's your practice at the time, Kent? And I said, well, I do koan practice. And they said, oh, well, I like to do Great Heart. This was somebody who's no longer with the center. And but he said, I like to do Great Heart because of feelings. I go, I'm good with feelings. I got that. Check that one off. And of course, I was in denial about that very much. But I want to share, so all kinds of stories we tell ourselves, and certainly that I told myself in that situation, dreams about it, and that we can live in. And I wanted to share a koan with you that deals with dreams and deals with stories that affect our life. And it's a very rich, deep koan. I'm not going to begin to go into it in any detail at all, but I still want to touch on it. And it's case 91 of the Book of Equanimity, Nonsense Peony. And many of you would be familiar with this, I'm sure, and heard detailed Dharma discussions about it, or perhaps worked on it yourself. But it's Riko Taifu on one occasion asked Master Nansen, Dharma Master Joe is exceedingly wonderful. He said heaven and earth have the same root. The 10,000 things are one body. Nansen pointed to peony in the garden and said, Taifu, most people see this flower as if in a dream. Well, I just want to focus on that last sentence. Taifu, Nansen, pointing to this flower, this beautiful flower, this peony, and said, most people see this flower as if in a dream. Yeah, in Roshi's commentary in his book, in the Book of Equanimity, he talks about this concept we have of a flower, this word flower, and what that evokes for us. It's not a flower, but it's something, right? Same thing if I said makugyo, or I said bowl, or I said car, right now. We have something there, but it's not exactly the car, it's not exactly makugyo, whatever it is. It's a concept. And even if we strolled outside, or even looking at these beautiful flowers right back here in the corner, okay? Okay. Looking at those, that I'm creating arm's distance right now to those by a concept I have, oh, it's a bouquet of flowers, yeah, been there, done that, whatever, right? I might not be really, really viscerally experiencing that bouquet. I don't know, perhaps I am, perhaps I'm not, but I could be in a bit of a dreamlike state about that. And I can go through life much that way, like in that little story I told about as a young boy. And it's one thing to have these images, and other things to experience things directly. And there was a situation we had in Lafayette, little sitting group that we have on Sunday. It's associated with with the Sangha here. Very small little group. We have about 5 people, maybe something like that. Sometimes less, sometimes maybe 1 or 2 people more. And somebody, I told this story, and somebody brought, I'd referenced this thing, Vegemite, I think it's called Vegemite. And a lot of people don't like it. I'd never had it before. But I thought, well, I can't really know if I like it or not. I never even tried it. So I made a thing about it. This person brought it in, Lisa Marie, who comes here sometimes. She brought it in because she'd been in Australia, and she passed it around to the group, and I took a bite out of it, right? Took a bite out of it, and now I know what Vegemite tastes like. I couldn't explain it, but I do know what it tastes like. But even there, I had a bias about it because I heard it was horrible. So before I even tasted it, I wasn't really completely open about it. Turned out I actually did, kind of bizarre, I kind of liked it. So anyway. And of course, we're aware, and we heard it talked about yesterday by Tetsudo, about the Dharma transmission of Shakyamuni Buddha and Mahakyashapa, and holding up the flower and blinking, and then Mahakyashapa giving a little smile, and then the Buddha transmitting the eye of the Dharma to Mahakyashapa, and this notion he experienced this but anyway, a lot of times in life we may or may not be very aware of the extent of whatever dream we're in, how well we're really perceiving reality, totality, thus, whatever. And we may have a concept of the way it is, and if we ever have a concept of it, well, right there, that's distance and creating space. On the other hand, we don't go overboard with that and then discount everything we experience, enjoy, and say, well, I enjoy the sunset, but I got a little bit of distance there. I'm not really enjoying it right. That's getting really bizarre, I think, and not helpful. Just we do the best we can. But there's a dream in our culture that's particularly pervasive, and it relates to Zen practice. And one of them that I'm not going to deal with today is that I exist. And of course we do exist, but we don't exist maybe the way most of us think we exist. But the other is that this notion too of I'm just separate, right? Same, very closely related. But the thing that affects our Zen practice a lot is this notion that everything should be, it's related to those other 2 ideas, but everything should be just as I want it to be, right? Everything should be just as I want it to be. The weather, I want it to be a certain way, right? Now maybe you want it to be raining and I want it to be sunny, but it should be the way I want it to be. And situations should be the way I want it to be, not the way necessarily you want it to be. And I'm pretty quick to judge how you want it to be, and oh, by the way, more often than not, you're wrong on what you want. Just turns out I'm right, okay? So we can go through life being quick to judge and say, like, just some real simple examples. She should sit more. She just should sit more. She's a Zen student, but she should sit more. Or he shouldn't get so upset. Got a quick temper, that one. He shouldn't get so upset. Or we can do it on ourselves too. I should be more kind. I should sit more. It's on-go. There have been a lot of times I haven't sat as much as I should be sitting since it's on-go. Right? And, maybe even just, that person next to me is breathing too loudly. They shouldn't breathe that loud. Whatever they got to do, cool it on the loud breathing, okay? Take it down a couple notches. And so the focus becomes the way things should be in our view, or my view, and not the way things are. Not the way things are. But in my Zen practice, for me to get that, bigger container, to be more open, to be more spacious, it's not about the way things should be. Who knows how things should be, let alone how I think they should be. It's about me opening up to the way things are, right? You know, last night, I didn't feel the greatest last night. I had a little trouble sleeping. Who knows why? Just one of those things. And here I am, can be talking about this today, and what do I quickly recoil? Dang, I got to give a talk tomorrow. I got to get some good sleep. It shouldn't be happening to me, right? That's what it was, right? It was actually perfect that happened last night. Very helpful in my practice. But you know, as we work with that more and more, it's such a helpful part of our practice, and it's so much, you know, grist for the mill. And as the third patriarch said, you know, we don't really have to seek after the truth. Just cease to cherish all these opinions that we have. But I do think, from a practice standpoint, again, we don't have to do this. It's not right or wrong one way or the other. But I think, from a practice standpoint, it's an impediment not to become open to more and more things. I think that can be very very important. And you know, just one other example about it, it's maybe more real life, and some of you may be experiencing this even in session, is that, you know, here I am, I've been sitting for how many years you all have been sitting, some of you. And right now I'm just feeling ticked off, I'm edgy, I'm frustrated. This Zen thing is overrated, you know. And I've given up a week of my vacation, and here I am, and to be frank, it sucks. I don't know if I can say sucks on video. But I can Photoshop that out or whatever. But anyway, you know, that's the kind of thing that can be going through our mind. Or I don't know, I've sat for so long and I'm not enlightened yet. You know, all these kind of thoughts that we can have. So being able to open up to that and not try to discard that. Just realize, yeah, right now I'm pissed. Right now I am frustrated that I'm not enlightened. Darn it. Just be with that. What's that feel like? Hmm? So anyway, to do all of this, to really open up to where we can open up to this life, see it with our hearts, our hair, our toenails, the whole kit and caboodle. Just totally open up like that. It's not easy, and it takes, in my experience, it takes the ability to be vulnerable and to have compassion with myself. And when I have that, then I can have more compassion with everybody else too. I need that. And eventually, it's so helpful in my practice to be able to accept myself more just unconditionally. And I can remember, I won't share the whole story, but in the Great Heart, we were doing some voice dialogue exercises in that. In fact, we were doing it right in this room. And this notion of the voice of acceptance. Voice of acceptance. And I was asked, they said, well, what would the voice of acceptance be? And as I manifested that in my body, and I just remember tears coming down. It was just so healing and so powerful. But there apparently, I used to watch cartoons probably more often than I cared to admit when I was a kid. My brother and I both watched them. And there was a cartoon, and some of you are too young probably to know this person. I don't know, maybe you'll all know, maybe not. But this guy, he accepted himself as a cartoon character, probably had a pretty good concept of emptiness since he was a cartoon character. And I'll just real quickly share a little jingle which shows his level of acceptance and how well he knew himself. And we'll just call him, for lack of anything else. You can call him, he's traditionally called Popeye the Sailor Man, but you can also call him Popeye the Philosopher, I suppose. And his words of wisdom were this, which meant nothing to me then, but they happened to pop up as I was thinking about this talk. And he said, I am what I am, and that's all that I am. And I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. Toot toot. Anyway, we could probably all learn a thing, study the self, right? Study the self, forget the self, and then be enlightened by everything. So knowing the self is pretty helpful to really see what's what's going on. But it isn't easy. It's hard to know ourselves. And we can fool ourselves and have so many blind spots. And that's where the Roshis are so incredibly helpful, to help us, give us a nudge, point out some things. And it's not necessarily fun to have pointed out blind spots. It's kind of like when Sensei was talking about, easy, easy, hard, talking about layman palm. It's not necessarily fun going through the hard stuff. And obviously they're compassionate folks, but part of being a teacher too is to help us see these blind spots. And be able to experience that. But the thing about the Roshis is they are completely accepting of us. I may not be completely accepting of myself, and I can tell you I'm not, but they are. They don't have any agenda in Dokusan, I just show up there and I do the best I can. I do try to do that. I try to do the best I can. But, sometimes it's, I'm just totally missing it. And so they can help with that. And that's why I think a practice, besides practicing with a group of individuals, having teachers is so critical. A couple of books I read many years ago before I ever found this, that sat with a group, was a book by Joko Beck, and I know Roshi knew her very, very well, and she was not without her opinions. And she talked about some people she knew that had been practicing Zen for 20 years, but they either had not had a teacher or they quit this teacher and didn't stay with it and then didn't get back, or whatever they did. They kind of did their own thing. And her comment in her book was, she said, I never met her, but I think it would have been a kick to meet her. I would have really appreciated that, just going to a retreat with her. But she said, you know what? They might as well have been playing golf for those 20 years. That's how far along it got with the practice. So anyway, out of context, but teachers are important. And being able to open up to them is very important. I want to share just briefly, another koan with you here. And that is koan number 63 of the Book of Equanimity. Joshu asked about death. And again, the koan goes, Master Joshu asks Master Toshi, when a man who dies the great death revives, what then? And Toshi replied, going by night isn't permitted. You'd better arrive during the day. Going by night isn't permitted, you'd better arrive during the day. So what is this great death? As Shishin Roshi says in his commentary, it's dropping off body and mind, everything. All of our preferences, ideas, concepts, illusions, delusions, facts, non-facts, everything. Dropping all of that off, right? Of course, Dogen's a famous example of dropping off body and mind. But dropping all of that off, that's the great death. And we can do that now. We don't have to wait till our, what would be called our physical death by some people. So getting rid of all these defenses and projections and ignorance that we have, and grasping and clinging, all that stuff, right? And then also, this koan deals with after the great death, and then when the individual revives, what then? And his commentary he talks about, not grabbing on again, just seeing clearly this life, just everything as it is, even after this experience. And he talks about that. Okay, so what's that better not arrive at night versus arriving in daylight? Because at night things are a little bit mysterious. You think you see a coyote out there, but it's really just some grasses blowing. You're projecting these things out there, and you can create all these dreams and stories and not be right. But if you're, it's like an example that Shishin Roshi shared with me one time about, maybe you have a little teeny experience with reality. It's kind of like flicking a Bic lighter in a Pepsi Center. You just flip on that Bic lighter. Are they playing basketball? Is it hockey? I don't know. Something down there though. Some guy's doing something. people doing something. Or you flip on all the lights. Boom. The whole Pepsi Center's illuminated. And then you can see what's going on a lot more clearly, right? So that's that notion maybe of arriving by day. And when we do that, when we experience this great death, then we can live this ordinary life in an extraordinary way. And that's enough to keep me wanting to come back and come back and come back to this practice, to try to see more clearly, less dream, more totality, although you can discuss about ever being completely out of the dream, but certainly not as enough about that. Another thing I just wanted to share with you briefly is this notion of living, which is what I'm trying to focus on today, really living our life. And there's a book I picked up recently by Stephen Levine, perhaps some of you read it, A Year to Live. And it's about how to spend the next 365 days of our life, assuming we're going to die. And it's for anyone. I mean, hopefully you get it before you have a real serious end of life threat looming. But you can work the same principles. You can look at letting go. You can look about having the great death, continuing to do our practice to have this great death before we actually have to deal with our death. We can see our fixed stories and dreams and these sorts of things. And one of the things for me, it's not in this book necessarily, but this idea of putting my shields down. Then that's I guess a Star Wars thing, right? They have to put the shields down so they can go out to battle or something. Put the shields up, and then the bad folks can't attack you. They can't reach you or something. That's a pretty good metaphor for life, and particularly for my life a lot. I just tend to be bracing a lot. Just kind of, and walk down the hall at our headquarters. I just a little subtle bracing. Just not quite that comfortable, right? And that's okay. I just notice that. What's that feel like? That bracing. Okay. I'm not trying to get rid of it. It's like that. Maybe part of me wants to get rid of it. That's probably true. Part of me does. But also just open to it too. Just feel, what is that like? What is that like? Just experiencing it. So anyway, a lot of things to focus on from a living standpoint, and that we can all focus on. And I think he brings up some wonderful points in that book. And I think I'm running long, so let me check the time here. So that idea of just, for me, getting more and more in the habit of shields down. I'm just taking the dogs for a walk. I can have my shields down, okay? I don't have to brace for anything. Worst case, one of the neighbors says, hey, control your dog, okay? I can deal with that. Because our 3 dogs aren't like Bodhi, they're not perfect. Love that dog. But anyway, there's something else though about this practice and about learning how to really live this life. It's pretty unique. Those bumper stickers. Oh, there's a lot of things that are unique. The whole thing's unique. It's kind of a goofy thing to say. But those bumper stickers you'll see. They'll say like, or even things around the license plate. They'll say, "I'd rather be playing tennis." I'd rather be sailing. I saw one the other day. I'd rather be knitting. Right? And I always, when I see those, have a snarky comment go through my mind. Okay, that I'll spare you with. But it just comes up. Speed of light. Can't do much about that. I just observe it, and I laugh. They don't know what I'm saying. But the thing about practice is, we can always practice. Now the bumper stickers are probably not selling like hotcakes. I'd rather be practicing, but it wouldn't be right anyway, because we can always practice. We can practice when we're pissed off. We can practice when we're feeling loving and connected, right? And we can practice actually. Maybe in some ways, I say more valuable than the other, but when we're really frustrated, that's more of a chance for opening even at that time. So we can do that. And when I first came to Great Mountain Zen Center, about 20 years ago. I only could come at most once a week. And I just cherished that. I loved it so much. I wanted to come every time. From the first time I came here, I'd never sat in a group, never have with any place else, but I just loved it so much, even though I was nervous, my stomach was making noises, I was, sweaty armpits, all this stuff, right? but I loved it. I just loved it. And I remember Roshi, I saw Shishin Roshi that morning, I think it started like 5:30 back then, and he saw me in the foyer just as I was leaving. He said, so, how'd it go? And I was just thinking like, man, it went great, but instead I said, well, I didn't know any of the forms, I didn't know this, that, and he said, don't worry about that, just sit, and that was an important moment for me to get that kind of validation. But anyway, I missed the boat on that to an extent because I could have been practicing all that time on my own when I could only come like once a week or once every 2 weeks, but I didn't. I didn't get that notion and didn't really understand about taking it off the cushion and all that, and I missed that opportunity. So anyway, this just a couple of things I wanted to share is we got a real rare opportunity here this week. None of us can know if we're ever going to be able to go to Rohatsu again, or any session for that matter. I mean, I might have some serious health problem here before literally I finish this talk. I mean, it could absolutely happen. So I just encourage you to help support my practice, and I'll do my best to support yours, and let's just keep this thing going, and let's realize how amazing and how fleeting this is, how precious this is, that little orange dot with the chicken coop that I saw in the vastness of the space out here, right? And let's keep in mind too that session, it means to unify the mind. One mind. And when we're sitting in the Zendo, or we're sitting right here, but when we're sitting in the Zendo, to one side of me is Lisa, and there's Hakuju, and then there's Tetsudo, and there's Shoan, and of course, just seeing the people I see because they're just across from me or right next to me. And we're all doing our best. And as the week goes on and our minds still more and more, we can open up, let our guards down, our shields down more and more, and we can just experience even more of this intimacy like that Tetsudo talked about. We can experience that more and more. And maybe we can let go of one thing, just even one thing. And we don't want to force it, right? It's not pulling the Band-Aid off. But maybe there's something we can at least have awareness that we're holding on to, that we're clinging to when we're in Zazen or anywhere. But Zazen's a more acute example of it. And realizing that this is about unifying the mind, letting go of one thing. If I let go of one thing in that Zendo, that's going to help give more space in this unified mind to everyone, to all of us. And when you do the same, when you let go, that's helping create more space for my practice and everybody's practice, right? This one practice, really. But in another way, we all have our own practice too. So, before we completely close, I'd like to just take about a minute and just have stillness and just be aware, not asking you to let go of anything. That'll happen. It'll let go when it needs to let go. But just be aware of things, something that you might be holding on to, and just take a few minutes, or a few moments rather, and just experience that deeply. Thank you for that exercise. And the last thing I wanted to just say is that, so leaving here, we'll continue to do our Zazen, and do our Kinhin. We'll listen to more Dharma talks. We'll do our samu work, whatever it is. We'll tear a piece of toilet paper off the roll. We'll use the bidet. We'll do all these different life things, right? And that's that life. Those life things. That's this life that really does transcend death. And we can just also continue to build upon our stillness and respect everybody else's practice as well. And together, heart to heart, right? Heart to heart, we can let go. We can move towards dropping off body and mind together, and then we can live this ordinary life in an extraordinary way.